Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here to cut through the noise, really distill the most important information, and give you a clear, detailed understanding of what truly matters. Today, we're diving into a really substantial document. It's basically a foundational blueprint outlining a critical international relationship, and it charts its course for years to come. We're going to rigorously explore the EU-Canada partnership, an ambitious agenda. It's a joint statement issued from Brussels, Belgium, on June 23, 2025. And look, this isn't just some routine press release, not just a polite diplomatic exchange. It's a remarkably detailed and forward-looking strategic document. It lays out exactly how the European Union and Canada plan to deepen their ties and tackle some of the most pressing global challenges together. So our mission for you today is to meticulously break down exactly what this statement is saying. We'll define the key terms, the language they're using so every concept is crystal clear, while identify the major players involved, map out any specific timelines mentioned. Our goal is really to provide you with a comprehensive understanding of this whole agenda. No sugarcoating, so you can fully grasp its implications, its context. We'll explore the foundational principles, the things that anchor this partnership, then the specific global issues they're addressing head on, and finally, the ambitious, concrete future actions they've committed to. So maybe you've seen headlines about this, or perhaps you've even glanced at the document itself and felt a bit overwhelmed by the breadth and depth of its scope. Yeah, no worries at all. We're going to guide you through every layer of this blueprint. We'll make sure you emerge with a crystal clear picture of this really significant agreement. Okay, let's unpack this.
The foundation, an enduring partnership in a changing world.
Let's start right at the very beginning. The joint statement where the leaders kind of set the stage. They're emphasizing why this partnership is not just important, but absolutely crucial right now. What's the core identity they're reinforcing here right off the bat?
Well, what's immediately striking, I think, is the deep emphasis on the roots of this partnership. They don't just say, oh, we're friends.
Yeah.
They highlight trust and common values, and they specifically name them: democracy, human rights, the rule of law, and open rules-based markets.
Okay.
So this isn't just about, shared history or strong economic ties, though those are definitely there. It's explicitly grounded in these fundamental principles. You can think of these values as the bedrock, really, the foundation their whole relationship stands on. And the document, it frames this meeting in Brussels, June 23rd, 2025, as a historic milestone.
Historic milestone.
Yes, signaling a pivotal sort of forward-looking step to reinforce and deepen what's already a strategic partnership. It's like a formal reaffirmation that their connection, it goes beyond just diplomatic convenience. It stems from a shared understanding of how society should be governed, how economies should work.
So it's clearly not, a casual friendship. It's built on a very specific and deeply shared set of ideals. That's a pretty powerful starting point. How does this deep ideological foundation then enable them to respond to the current global climate? The statement keeps mentioning a rapidly changing world. What specific dynamics are they highlighting? What's driving this renewed, ambitious commitment?
Right, and the statement is very clear about that. This reinforcement and deepening of ties. It's a direct, you could even say urgent response to a rapidly changing world. The key global dynamics they explicitly call out are things like geopolitical uncertainty, which, covers everything from conflicts to shifting power balances. Then there's shifting economic dynamics reflecting trade tensions, the need for new economic models, and of course the accelerating impacts of climate change, a threat that demands immediate coordinated action. The goal, as they stated, is to forge a new, ambitious, and comprehensive partnership.
Ambitious and comprehensive.
Yeah, one that not only addresses these current urgent needs, but is also meticulously designed to evolve, to meet future challenges and opportunities as they come up. This isn't presented as like a short-term fix or a temporary alliance. No, it's explicitly stated as the beginning of a long-term effort aimed at promoting shared prosperity, democratic values, peace, security, globally. It's a profound recognition, really, that the world is just more interconnected and complex than ever. Makes their joint action absolutely essential.
And beyond that broad vision, that long-term effort, is there any immediate, concrete outcome mentioned right at the start? Something that signals this isn't just talk, not just a grand vision, but, tangible action right away.
Yes, and that's something that immediately jumped out to me, signaling real intent. It's the agreement on an EU-Canada security and defense partnership.
Okay, right at the beginning.
Right at the beginning. This isn't some vague future hope or a topic for later. It's announced as a concrete, immediate expansion of their cooperation into a really critical domain. It tells us they're not just strategizing for the distant future, but prioritizing immediate coordinated action in an area that's vital for global stability. This partnership, it provides a new, coherent framework for their joint efforts. It goes beyond, previous ad hoc collaborations, establishes a more integrated approach to security challenges.
That's fascinating. Security and defense partnership right out of the gate. How does that signal maybe a new urgency or a new level of commitment compared to what they've done before? Is this mainly a reaction to specific threats, or is it more proactive, trying to shape the global security landscape?
I think it's clearly both. While it's certainly a response to rising global instability, no doubt about that,
Yeah.
it's also deeply proactive. Previously, cooperation might have been more transactional or issue-specific. This partnership, though, it formalizes a comprehensive approach. It allows for shared strategic planning, coordinated responses, more efficient use of resources.
Yeah.
It really reflects a mutual understanding that national security today is increasingly a collective thing.
Right.
It signals a move towards maybe harmonizing their strategic compasses, recognizing that against these increasingly complex global threats, a unified front is just far more effective.
Okay, so it's about shared values, responding to global challenges, and taking immediate concrete action like this security partnership. But ultimately, who is this partnership for, according to the statement? Is it just about governments talking to governments, or do citizens play a central role in their vision?
The statement very deliberately grounds this whole thing in a citizen-centric approach.
Citizen-centric.
Yeah, it explicitly acknowledges that our citizens are looking for responses to the unprecedented challenges we face. And that framing is crucial, I think. It suggests the initiatives, the cooperation. It isn't just for geopolitical strategizing or, high-level diplomacy. It's intended to directly address the concerns and needs of the people. In both the European Union and Canada, the emphasis is on working together to promote those shared values, uphold the rules-based international order, facilitate trade and investment, and crucially, foster strong people-to-people contacts.
Ah, okay, people to people.
Exactly. It highlights a commitment to nurturing connections at all levels, government to government, sure, but right down to individual citizens. Recognizing that the strength of the relationship ultimately rests on shared prosperity and understanding among their populations.
And how do they position themselves globally? Do they actually name specific regions or conflicts where they plan to stand together, make their presence felt, their values known?
Oh yes, they certainly do. The statement wraps up this foundational part with a very clear, very outward-looking global stand. There's a strong commitment to stand even more firmly in support of peace, stability, and prosperity in the world. And they immediately list initial, highly sensitive areas of focus: Ukraine, the Middle East, and the Indo-Pacific.
Right away, Ukraine, Middle East, Indo-Pacific.
Exactly. This isn't just some general statement of intent. It indicates their very specific intention to apply their shared values, their coordinated efforts, to critical, high-stakes geopolitical theaters. Naming these regions so early underscores the comprehensive, proactive nature of their renewed partnership. It signals that those shared values will translate into concrete actions on the international stage.
It's abundantly clear, then. This document is far more than just a diplomatic handshake. It's a robust commitment to a shared global outlook. But how does this broad vision translate into concrete actions internationally, especially when it comes to upholding those foundational principles of international order?
Upholding the rules-based order and global principles.
All right, this next section is really the operationalization of those foundational values we just talked about. If their partnership is truly grounded in democracy, human rights, rule of law, then this part outlines precisely how they plan to defend and promote those values globally. How? By strengthening the international system itself.
Okay, so where does the United Nations fit into this grand plan? Is it just, a courtesy mention, or do they commit to its core principles, its functionality in a meaningful way?
Oh, it's very meaningful. They explicitly state an unwavering commitment to the rules-based international order with the United Nations and its charter at its core.
Unwavering commitment.
That language is very deliberate. It signifies they view the UN, its founding principles, as absolutely fundamental to global governance, global stability. And their commitment isn't just talk. They promise continued close cooperation in promoting international peace and security through this established framework. What's also important, I think, is they highlight sustainable development as a key pillar of their relationship.
A key pillar, okay.
Yeah, which indicates a long-term structural engagement with global challenges. It aligns deeply with the UN's broader development goals. Shows their commitment extends beyond just immediate security concerns to long-term global well-being.
And how do their shared values, democracy, human rights, how do those manifest in their global approach? Do they go beyond just general declarations? Do they single out specific rights or groups they intend to protect or promote?
Their commitment to promoting democracy, human rights, rule of law globally is, well, unequivocal. They position themselves as key partners in these efforts. And yes, absolutely, they go beyond generalities. They explicitly commit to taking further action to ensure respect for the rights of women and girls,
Okay.
and pursuing an end to all forms of discrimination, including against LGBTI persons.
Right.
This is a significant detail. It signals a targeted, active approach to specific human rights issues that are still prevalent worldwide. It demonstrates a more granular focus on protection, on equality, shows their commitment isn't just theoretical, but extends to tangible action for vulnerable groups.
Beyond general support for the UN, are there any particular UN initiatives they specifically endorse or plan to back? Maybe those aimed at reforming or strengthening the UN itself?
Yes, they mentioned two significant initiatives that really highlight their forward-looking commitment to the UN's effectiveness. First, they commit to continued support for the implementation of the UN Pact for the Future.
The Pact for the Future.
Yeah, for listeners who might not know, this is a proposed multilateral agreement. It's aimed at reinforcing global governance, revitalizing multilateralism, often seen as part of the UN Secretary-General's Our Common Agenda report. And second, in parallel, they explicitly support the ambitious reforms sought under the UN80 initiative.
UN80?
Right. That refers to efforts to modernize and enhance the UN system as it gets close to its 80th anniversary in 2025, aiming for greater efficiency, relevance, responsiveness in a world that looks, well, profoundly different than it did 8 decades ago. So this shows their commitment isn't just to the UN as it is, but to its continuous evolution, its strengthening.
And what about the international criminal justice system? Given recent global events, various conflicts, this seems particularly relevant right now. What's their stance on bodies like the International Criminal Court, the ICC?
This is a very strong, very unambiguous point in the statement. Really reflects current global tensions. They reaffirm steadfast support for the independent functioning of the international criminal justice system, particularly the International Criminal Court, ICC.
Steadfast support.
It's a direct, forceful endorsement of the ICC's vital role in ensuring accountability for, the most severe international crimes. Genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity. And what's more, they go a step further. They explicitly condemn threats to the independent functioning of the ICC, including measures against individual officials.
Wow.
Yeah, this points to a clear stance against any attempts by states or individuals to undermine, penalize, or interfere with the court's crucial work or its personnel. It's a firm statement of protection for that global legal framework designed to hold perpetrators of atrocities accountable.
Beyond justice and human rights, how do they plan to address challenges to the global economic and trade order? The world economy feels pretty volatile right now. Supply chain disruptions, protectionist sentiments, geopolitical tensions hitting trade.
The statement keenly acknowledges these growing challenges to the international economic and trade order.
Absolutely.
Their response. It's a strong reiteration of a mutual commitment to sustainable, fair, and open trade, grounded in the rule of law and in respect for internationally agreed trade rules as embodied by the World Trade Organization, WTO.
So big support for the WTO.
Huge. They view the WTO, which sets global trade rules, arbitrates disputes. They see it as the indispensable cornerstone for maintaining a stable, predictable, fair global trading environment. And they explicitly state this commitment is essential to maintain global economic stability and to safeguard our supply chain resilience.
Supply chain resilience again.
Yes, it highlights a profound recognition that disruptions to trade, whether from geopolitics or other factors, can have really far-reaching economic and security consequences. Makes rule-based trade critical for overall stability, for preventing future crises. It's a strategic move, really, to insulate their economies from external shocks.
They are clearly standing firm on international principles, on the institutions that uphold them.
Yeah.
Now, let's shift our focus. Let's look at where their shared values lead them to act in specific, often volatile, global situations. This is where principles translate into real-world impact. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Addressing global hotspots, a united front.
Right, so the statement doesn't shy away from naming specific geopolitical challenges, regions where their coordinated action is critical. Let's dive into how Canada and the EU are aligning their efforts in these critical regions, starting with, well, arguably the most pressing global conflict right now, Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. What is their united stance here? What commitments are they making?
The statement expresses a resolute condemnation of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. It explicitly cites it as a manifest violation of the UN Charter and international law.
Manifest violation. Strong words.
Very strong. This isn't just diplomatic nicety. It's a clear, powerful indictment of Russia's actions as illegal, unacceptable under the fundamental rules of the international system. Their objective. An unshakable commitment to a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace. One that respects Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders.
So no territorial concessions.
Exactly. That means they are not endorsing any kind of peace that involves Ukraine giving up territory or legitimizing Russia's aggression in any way. They also join the call for a full, unconditional ceasefire of at least 30 days, acknowledging Ukraine's unilateral commitment to this already. It signals a pathway for de-escalation, but it requires reciprocal action from Russia, of course.
That's a strong condemnation, a clear vision for peace. But what about practical, tangible support? How are they committing to help Ukraine, its people, on the ground, beyond just words?
They reaffirm an unwavering commitment, that word again, to providing continued political, financial, economic, humanitarian, military, and diplomatic support to Ukraine and its people for as long as it takes and as intensely as needed.
For as long as it takes, that's huge.
It's a profoundly significant, open-ended commitment, highlights long-term dedication. Now, it does include a caveat about respecting the security and defense policies of certain EU member states, but broadly, it signifies a collective willingness to sustain critical aid. This means everything from financial assistance to keep the Ukrainian state running, to humanitarian supplies for civilians, to advanced military equipment for defense.
Are there specific support initiatives or military actions they highlight, demonstrating how this unwavering commitment translates into actual programs?
Yes, very specifically. They detail concrete ongoing efforts. They mention close coordination on military equipment and training. They reference the EU military assistance mission, EU Ukraine, that's the one providing training to Ukrainian armed forces, and Operation Unifier, which is Canada's long-standing military training and capacity building mission in Ukraine.
Okay, so existing operational programs.
Exactly. Tangible operational programs. Additionally, they explicitly support the International Coalition for the Return of Ukrainian Children, and it's notably co-chaired by Ukraine and Canada. This initiative directly addresses that horrific issue of children unlawfully deported or transferred by Russia and Belarus.
Right.
They issue an urgent call for Russia and Belarus to immediately ensure the safe return of all these children. It highlights a focus on addressing specific, grievous humanitarian abuses.
And what measures are they outlining to increase pressure on Russia and ensure accountability for the aggression, the war crimes committed?
They commit to increasing pressure on Russia. That includes further sanctions and taking measures to prevent their circumvention.
Closing the loopholes.
Precisely. It means not just imposing new economic restrictions, but actively working to stop third parties from helping Russia evade existing sanctions. A key financial pressure point they highlight is ensuring that Russian sovereign assets remain immobilized until Russia ceases its war of aggression and compensates it for the damage.
Using frozen assets for reconstruction.
That's the long-term intent signaled there, yes. And for accountability for crimes, they commit to ensuring full accountability for war crimes and other serious crimes, including through the establishment of a special tribunal for the crime of aggression against Ukraine.
A special tribunal.
Yes, this is a significant legal step. It aims at prosecuting the crime of aggression itself, which goes beyond individual war crimes. It targets the very act of illegal invasion.
Beyond the immediate conflict, how are they planning to support Ukraine's long-term future, particularly in terms of recovery and reconstruction?
They remain firmly committed to supporting Ukraine's repair, recovery, and reconstruction efforts. They specify working through mechanisms like the Ukraine Donor Platform that coordinates international financial aid and through robust in-country coordination to ensure efficiency. Canada's continued support via an expert deployment to that donor platform is specifically welcomed, signifies Canada's direct involvement in coordinating this vital work, and a specific upcoming event they mention as particularly relevant is the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Rome in July 2025.
Okay, a date to watch. July 2025.
Yes, it provides a clear timeline for an important future gathering focused on reconstruction, where concrete pledges and plans are expected to be solidified.
Shifting focus slightly, but still in the region, what about the Republic of Moldova? How does it fit into this framework of support, given its proximity to the conflict?
They reaffirm continued strong support for Moldova's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The emphasis here is really on enhancing the country's resilience against the consequences of Russia's war, and also against hybrid activities designed to destabilize Moldova.
Hybrid activities,
Yeah.
like disinformation.
Exactly. Disinformation, cyber attacks, other forms of covert interference, particularly, they note, in the run-up to the parliamentary elections. This suggests an acute awareness of specific, ongoing destabilization efforts and a proactive commitment to help Moldova maintain its democratic processes, its national integrity against these external pressures.
Okay, moving now to the Middle East, a region with an ongoing catastrophic humanitarian crisis. What is their unified position on Gaza and the broader Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
They reaffirm a strong commitment to an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, the release of all hostages, and the resumption of unimpeded humanitarian aid at scale.
Ceasefire, hostages, aid, all three.
All three, yes. This tripartite demand is framed as absolutely essential to address the catastrophic humanitarian situation on the ground. They also issue a strong condemnation of the escalation in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, specifically mentioning increased settler violence, that's violence by Israeli settlers against Palestinians, the expansion of settlements which are illegal under international law, and Israel's military operations there.
And for long-term solution?
For a long-term solution, they emphasize the critical importance of pursuing a lasting and sustainable peace based on the implementation of the two-state solution.
The two-state solution.
Yes, the vision of an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel. Finally, they explicitly state no role for Hamas in the future governance of Gaza. That lays out a clear vision for the territory's post-conflict leadership. So it's a comprehensive stance, immediate demands for action, and a long-term political vision.
And what about Iran? The statement refers to dangerous escalation following recent events. How are they addressing this complex situation, particularly Iran's nuclear ambitions and its regional behavior?
They express their deepest concern at dangerous escalation following Israeli strikes on Iran and Iran's response, acknowledging that worrying tit for tat. They then issue a clear call on all sides to show restraint and abide by international law, really emphasizing de-escalation.
Restraint.
Yes. Crucially, they state they have been consistently clear that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, underscoring a firm red line. They assert that a diplomatic solution remains the best way to address concerns over Iran's nuclear program. And they stand ready to contribute to a negotiated deal which imposes verifiable constraints on Iran's nuclear program with the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, in charge of monitoring and verification.
So back to a deal monitored by the IAEA.
That's the preferred path, yes. Favoring a return to a comprehensive agreement monitored by the International Nuclear Watchdog. But beyond the nuclear issue, they also remain committed to addressing Iran's destabilizing behavior. And they detail what that includes: nuclear proliferation risks, military support for Russia's war in Ukraine, backing of regional armed groups, transnational repression against dissidents abroad, and systematic human rights violations within Iran.
So a whole list of concerns.
A comprehensive list, yes. Alongside their preferred diplomatic pathways, they're clear they'll address these broader malign activities.
Looking at broader security concerns now, how do they view the interconnectedness of security in regions that might seem far apart, specifically the Euro-Atlantic and Indo-Pacific regions?
They explicitly recognize that security in these seemingly distinct regions is increasingly interconnected.
Interconnected, that's key.
It's a significant strategic realization, acknowledging that events in one part of the world can have profound ripple effects globally. They reaffirm a shared interest in maintaining peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific, specifically mentioning those highly sensitive areas, the East and South China Seas, and across the Taiwan Strait.
Major flashpoints.
Absolutely. Flashpoints with significant global economic and security implications. They commit to continuing to work with regional partners, including ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, to uphold a free, open, secure Indo-Pacific based on international law. They also voiced deep concern regarding DPRK's ongoing nuclear weapons and ballistic missile programs, DPRK being North Korea, and strongly condemn Russia-DPRK military cooperation, highlighting these as direct violations of UN Security Council resolutions and severe threats to international security.
Are there any other regional issues or broader areas of concern the statement touches on, demonstrating a wider geographic scope?
Yes, their engagement is quite broad. They commit to deepening cooperation on the broader Middle East, specifically mentioning efforts related to stability in Lebanon and Syria. They also plan to engage on issues related to Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean, including specific attention to the complex situation in Haiti. The overarching commitment here is to stay engaged in fragile and conflict-affected countries facing instability or complex humanitarian situations. With a clear focus on supporting populations, particularly the most vulnerable, it demonstrates a wide geographical scope, a holistic approach to global stability.
And finally, a region of growing strategic importance, the Arctic. How is this region framed within their partnership? What are their specific goals there?
The Arctic is singled out as an area that will remain an area of close collaboration, signifying its enduring strategic importance for both the EU and Canada, given their shared Arctic interests and territories.
Right.
Their goals for the Arctic are explicitly stated: foster peace and security, stability, and sustainable economic development, particularly of the blue economy.
The blue economy, sustainable ocean use.
Exactly, sustainable use of ocean resources. And a critically important aspect of this commitment is their pledge to do so in full respect of the interests, priorities, and rights of Indigenous peoples, in line with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, UNDRP.
UNDRP. That's crucial.
Absolutely crucial. It explicitly integrates human rights, self-determination, indigenous sovereignty into their Arctic strategy, sets a high standard for responsible development in the region.
That's a truly comprehensive overview of their global stance. Demonstrates a unified front on an impressive array of complex issues. Clearly, their partnership goes far beyond just declarations. It involves deep, practical collaboration rooted in existing frameworks and new initiatives, too. Let's dig into the specific mechanisms, the underlying agreements that underpin this ambitious agenda.
Bolstering the core partnership trade, economic, digital, security.
Exactly. Do we connect this to the bigger picture? These sections are where, the rubber meets the road. They detail the specific mechanisms, the ongoing efforts that not only facilitate this comprehensive partnership, but also make it truly operational. It's about building on existing strengths and really forging entirely new paths for collaboration.
So what are the foundational agreements explicitly stated as being at the very heart of the EU-Canada relationship, and how are they performing in practice?
The Strategic Partnership Agreement, SPA, and the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, SEA, are unequivocally stated as being at the core of the EU-Canada relationship.
SPA and CETA, the core.
They're the legal and economic backbone of their ties. The document highlights their continuous evolution, noting that through these agreements, the partnership is developing and deepening continuously in response to an evolving global context. A key commitment is to ensure their effective implementation and remain committed to achieving their full ratification. Because remember, not all EU member states have fully ratified CETA yet.
Right, ratification's still ongoing for some.
Exactly. Yeah. But the tangible impact is quantified. The SPA and CETA have demonstrably boosted cooperation over the past 8 years. And remarkably, bilateral trade has increased by over 65% compared to pre-CETA levels.
Wow, over 65%. That's not small.
Not small at all, a substantial expansion of economic exchange. They also welcome efforts to remove barriers to interprovincial trade in Canada and reduce barriers within the EU single market, which are expected to further ease trade for companies on both sides, creating a more seamless marketplace.
That's significant economic growth and a clear commitment to removing internal friction points for trade. How does this partnership then address broader economic security and resilience, especially concerning critical supply chains, strategic industries, which are so vital today?
They're deeply committed to enhancing trade and investment, advancing diversification, promoting economic security and resilience, creating new investment opportunities, and ensuring long-term security and prosperity. The document explicitly states, ensuring reliable and sustainable supply chains is a mutual priority.
Mutual priority, key phrase.
Absolutely. It highlights a shift in economic thinking where security considerations are paramount. There's a shared interest in diversifying our supply chains and strategic investment to reduce dependencies, reduce vulnerabilities. They will foster closer cooperation on targeted industrial matters, driving global competitiveness and strategic autonomy.
Strategic autonomy.
Yeah, it means moving beyond just trading finished goods to collaborating on the underlying industrial base that supports key technologies, making sure they aren't overly reliant on others for critical components.
What are some of these key sectors they identify for closer industrial cooperation? Are they focusing on traditional industries or looking towards the cutting edge?
Oh, it's very specific and very forward-looking. They name sectors that are truly at the vanguard of global innovation and strategic importance. Things like artificial intelligence, AI, quantum technologies, space, cyberspace, aeronautics, biotechnologies, new energies, minerals and critical metals, advanced manufacturing, and clean tech.
That's quite a list, all cutting edge.
It is. And what's striking is these aren't just random industries. They are the strategic linchpins of future economic growth and national security. By focusing here, Canada and the EU are essentially pooling resources, pooling expertise, to ensure they remain competitive and secure in the technologies that will define the next century. They also state a clear intention to maintain a secure transatlantic supply chain on key technologies such as artificial intelligence, AI, supercomputers, and semiconductors, recognizing these as foundational digital components.
Right.
As for specific projects, they welcome the announcement of a Canadian strategic nickel project under the EU Critical Raw Materials Act.
Ah, the CRMA.
Exactly. That EU regulation aimed at securing stable, diversified supplies of critical raw materials, and they commit to identifying co-investment opportunities. They also welcome the G7 Global Critical Minerals Action Plan, agreed under Canada's presidency, pointing to broader, multilateral alignment on these vital resources.
Okay, moving firmly into the digital realm now, how are they bolstering their collaboration on digital and tech policy, given the rapid advancements, the increasing importance of this whole sector?
They're profoundly committed to mutually beneficial collaboration here on digital and tech policy issues, bolstering the bilateral digital trade relationship. The Canada-EU digital partnership is already in play. Both sides are working hand in hand on concrete projects in crucial areas for a robust digital economy, like joint research and cutting-edge tech. They are specifically looking forward to Canada hosting the first EU-Canada Digital Partnership Council later this year. That'll be a high-level forum to really drive this cooperation.
A dedicated council just for digital.
Yes. Key areas of collaboration include enhancing cooperation on AI innovation, specifically mentioning AI factories.
ID factories.
Yeah, these are collaborative platforms for AI development and deployment. Also, linking high-performance computing infrastructure, deepening research cooperation in strategic tech areas like AI and quantum. And a significant stated intention, which could have a profound impact, is to align our frameworks and standards in the regulatory field.
Aligning regulations.
Yes, for things like safer, more inclusive online platforms, trustworthy AI systems, and interoperable digital identities and digital credentials. This suggests a move towards potentially harmonized digital governance, making digital interactions, digital services more seamless and secure across the Atlantic.
This sounds like a really deep level of integration, especially with aligning regulations and interoperable digital identities. You mentioned earlier that EU-Canada Security and Defense Partnership was agreed today. Can you elaborate on the initial framework for this? What does it entail, particularly in terms of concrete steps?
Right, the EU-Canada Security and Defense Partnership. It's explicitly designed to provide a coherent, high-level political framework for joint efforts in this field. The explicit goal is strengthening and widening cooperation. There's a fundamental commitment to continuing strong cooperation, notably through Canada's contributions to EU missions and operations.
So Canada already participates in some EU missions.
Yes, it speaks to Canada's existing engagement in EU-led crisis management efforts,
Mm-hmm.
and they welcome possible future collaboration on crisis management, a very concrete, immediate step. Canada will strengthen its defense relationship by posting a defense representative to the EU.
A dedicated defense rep in Brussels.
Exactly. Creates a direct, dedicated liaison for defense matters. They also underscore the value of Canada's participation in the EU's Permanent Structured Cooperation, PESCO projects.
PESCO.
Right, those initiatives for EU member states to collaborate on defense capability development, operational readiness. And they look forward to pursuing additional initiatives within this framework. Indicates a desire for deeper integration into EU defense structures.
And how does this defense collaboration relate to NATO? Given both Canada and many EU member states are in NATO, is there potential for overlap, or is it seen as complementary?
For Canada and those EU member states who are NATO allies, the statement is very clear. NATO remains the cornerstone of their collective defense.
Cornerstone. Okay, so NATO first.
Absolutely. It's a crucial clarification. This EU-Canada partnership isn't meant to replace or undermine NATO. Rather, it's designed to complement and strengthen it. The aim of the EU-Canada defense cooperation is to deliver on capability targets more quickly and economically, and with enhanced interoperability, to deliver mutual benefit and reinforce the European contribution to NATO. This is explicitly stated to be without prejudice to the specific character of the security and defense policy of certain EU member states and takes into account interests of all EU members, ensuring flexibility. They also express strong appreciation for Canada's continued commitment to European security, including its largest deployment of Canadian armed forces overseas. Demonstrates a very tangible Canadian contribution. It's about collective strength.
Okay, that makes sense. Finally, within this broader security framework, what about the Women, Peace and Security WPS agenda and Youth, Peace and Security YPS? How are these critical aspects of inclusive security being addressed?
This is a vital component of their security approach. Shows a commitment to human-centric security. They commit to continuing strong support for the full, equal, and meaningful participation of women and youth in conflict prevention, mediation, resolution, peacekeeping, peace building, and post-conflict reconstruction.
Full, equal, and meaningful participation.
Exactly. It means actively ensuring these groups aren't just, beneficiaries, but active agents of peace. They explicitly recognize that an enabling environment is fundamental to ensuring the safe participation of women. Acknowledges the need to address barriers, threats women face in these roles. Furthermore, they will ensure that women, peace, and security is integrated in all aspects of cooperation on security and defense. Gender equality is explicitly stated as a shared political and security priority, with collaboration aimed at countering setbacks against gender equality and the rights of women and girls that have emerged globally.
It's clear this isn't just about current affairs or immediate responses. It's about building long-term integrated systems across economies, digital landscapes, security. It really is a strategic alliance for decades to come. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty. The ambitious agenda, detailed in the annex. This is where the real work happens, outlining the specific, granular actions and initiatives they've committed to.
The ambitious agenda in detail annex commitments.
Okay, now we turn to the annex. It's aptly titled, The New EU-Canada Strategic Partnership of the Future. This is where that overarching vision translates into a series of highly concrete action items across multiple domains. This is where the rubber truly meets the road, detailing the specific work that underpins the broader partnership.
Exactly. This section is all about translating those high-level commitments into actionable steps. Demonstrates the depth, the breadth of their joint ambition. It's a very practical blueprint for how they actually intend to collaborate.
Let's start with increasing trade flows and promoting economic security. Building on CETA, what are the specific commitments laid out to strengthen their economic ties?
The annex outlines several concrete, pretty impactful steps. First, commit to fully and effectively implementing CETA. Maximize the benefits of the existing agreement. Support businesses. Diversify markets.
Okay, get the most out of CETA first.
Right. Second, launch work towards a digital trade agreement to complement CETA.
A separate digital trade agreement.
Yes, a crucial step to modernize their approach to trade in the digital era. Address things like e-commerce, data flows, digital consumer protection. Third, create practical tools for businesses to better support trade diversification. Things like facilitating B2B matchmaking, promoting cluster-to-cluster cooperation.
Connecting groups of businesses.
Exactly, connecting groups in specific sectors, and actively supporting the internationalization of small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, the backbone of many economies. Fourth, advance collaboration in the EU-Canada economic security dialogue through political, technical exchanges to proactively identify trends, risks affecting economic security, and cooperate on potential policy responses.
So anticipating problems.
It's exactly a strategic move to address economic vulnerabilities before they become crises. Fifth, reduce barriers and strengthen agriculture and agri-food trade, a sector with huge potential between them. Regarding future energy needs, closer cooperation, explore options for more resilient, diversified, reliable energy supply chains, including clean tech value chains, LNG, liquefied natural gas, renewables, safe and sustainable low-carbon hydrogen, other low-carbon technologies, with a view to increasing bilateral trade, strengthening energy security, especially given current geopolitical shifts.
Makes sense.
Also, continue existing cooperation on nuclear technologies, fuels, fuel cycle services, through negotiation of a modernized, comprehensive Canada-Euratom nuclear cooperation agreement, ensuring safe, secure use of nuclear energy. And finally, strengthen labor mobility, facilitate movement of highly skilled workers, explore shared interests in exchanging information about immigration partnerships, vital for addressing labor shortages, fostering innovation.
That's an incredible amount of detail on economic integration. Covers everything from digital trade to nuclear energy to skilled workers. Beyond just increasing trade, how do they plan to foster competitiveness and resilience through strengthened cooperation in strategic value chains? This sounds like a deeper industrial policy approach.
This section absolutely focuses on industrial strategy and resilience. You're right. First, launch a new EU-Canada industrial policy dialogue to boost industrial and supply chain cooperation in strategic sectors. Moves beyond simple trade to coordinated industrial development.
An actual industrial policy dialogue.
Yes. Second, commit to promoting projects and investments that specifically reduce supply chain risks, foster resilience, competitiveness of industries, and critical goods like semiconductors, and explicitly including projects that abide by environmental, social, and governance (ESG) standards. Adds that layer of ethical, sustainable development.
ESG built in.
Right. Third, work closely to ensure security and diversity in the supply of critical minerals and metals, those vital to mutual security, green and digital transitions, including exploring new opportunities for two-way investment, materials, expertise through the EU-Canada Strategic Partnership on Raw Materials, addresses a core vulnerability for both. Lastly, complete negotiations for a renewed Canada-EU Competition Cooperation Agreement, ASAP. Provides a legal framework to coordinate enforcement activities, share info obtained through investigations, with data privacy guarantees, of course.
So better cooperation on antitrust stuff.
Basically, yes. Ensuring fair markets.
Deepening regulatory alignment is also a key objective. What specific actions are planned here? What's the practical benefit for businesses, for citizens?
The annex specifies identifying opportunities for increased regulatory alignment, including advancing work under CEDAR's protocol on the mutual acceptance of the results of conformity assessment.
Okay, break that down. Mutual acceptance of conformity assessment.
Right. Put simply, imagine a product made in Canada needs to meet EU standards. This protocol aims to reduce redundant testing, redundant certification, by having one side accept the other's assessment results. It's like setting up universal plugs for your electronics across two different countries.
Ah, okay. Makes things flow better.
Exactly. Makes everything flow much more smoothly. Reduces bureaucratic friction, costs for businesses exporting goods. Additionally, they plan to bolster formal consultative mechanisms on EU and Canadian legislation and regulations, including CEDA's Regulatory Cooperation Forum, to ensure ongoing dialogue, coordination early in the legislative process, prevent new barriers from popping up.
Now let's get into the specifics of increasing transatlantic security. Building on that new EU-Canada security and defense partnership we discussed, what are the detailed commitments here for a new era of cooperation?
This area is remarkably comprehensive.
Right.
They plan to bolster bilateral dialogue, operational cooperation in all areas of joint interest, supporting peace, security, defense. Areas like maritime security, cyber issues, countering hybrid threats. They'll advance cooperation on the climate security nexus.
Climate change as a security issue.
Right, exploring how climate change impacts security, and expand joint efforts in maritime security by identifying opportunities for coordinated naval activities, joint exercises, patrols, things like that. They also aim to expand cooperation on defense capabilities, specifically by creating opportunities for increased defense industrial cooperation, working together to develop, produce military equipment.
Joint defense production.
That's the direction. Furthermore, commit to securing and protecting democratic institutions by preventing and countering foreign information manipulation and interference through increased cooperation.
Fighting FEME, that's huge.
Critical effort. Combat disinformation campaigns, covert attempts to undermine democratic processes, using relevant EU, Canadian, multilateral initiatives like the Canada-hosted G7 Rapid Response Mechanism. They will consider Canada's further participation in EU Permanent Structured Cooperation, PESCO projects, aiming towards joint capability development, greater interoperability. Finally, increase defense procurement cooperation through Canadian collaboration with Rearm Europe Readiness 2030.
Rearm Europe.
EU initiatives to boost defense production and readiness. This includes launching work towards a bilateral agreement related to the Security Action for Europe SAFE instrument, an EU tool for financial incentives for joint procurement, and exploring an administrative arrangement between Canada and the European Defense Agency, EDA.
Wow, that's deep integration on defense procurement.
It really is significant.
What about shaping the digital transition? Promoting exchanges in education, innovation for future technologies. This covers a huge array of cutting-edge fields.
In the digital realm, deepen cooperation in the framework of the EU-Canada Digital Partnership, and hold that first EU-Canada Digital Partnership Council later this year to drive it forward. That council will be key for strategic direction.
Okay.
They'll advance cooperation on a wide range of critical digital topics: AI, cybersecurity, secure digital communication, advanced connectivity, secure trusted communications infrastructure like 5G, subsea cables, also transparency, resilience of global tech supply chains, digital identity, quantum science, data spaces, online platforms, and fighting FEMI. A crucial part is advancing regulatory cooperation under the digital partnership, notably in AI and cybersecurity, with the explicit goal of working towards mutual recognition of AI and cybersecurity product certification, including under that CETA protocol and conformity assessment.
Mutual recognition for AI and cyber products.
That's the aim. If an AI system or cyber product is certified in one place, it could be recognized in the other. Simplifies market access, fosters innovation.
And on the innovation and education front, what specific actions are detailed to strengthen scientific and academic ties?
Deepen collaboration by leveraging Canada's association to Horizon Europe.
The big EU research program.
Exactly. The EU's massive research and innovation program, including on high-priority topics, and exploring potential participation in the EU's 10th framework program, the next big one. Opens up significant funding, collaboration for Canadian researchers, expand cooperation for access to world-class high-performance computing infrastructure through Horizon Europe, essential for cutting-edge research, support research and industrial collaboration across various fields, research security, AI, semiconductors, quantum, cybersecurity, climate change, oceans, circular economy, polar research, research and mobility training. Through the Canada-EU Digital Partnership and the EU-Canada Science and Technology Cooperation Agreement. Importantly, commit to promoting and defending academic and scientific research freedom, protection of scientists, ensuring an open, secure environment for inquiry. Lastly, increase people-to-people ties, improve mobility, recognition, particularly in higher ed and research, through programs like Erasmus Plus Entry, the European Research Council, and the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions.
Climate change and environmental degradation. Unequivocally critical global challenges. What are their specific commitments to fighting climate change, facilitating the transition to climate neutrality? This is an area where both the EU and Canada aim to be global leaders.
Absolutely, a major pillar of their agenda. They state support for carbon pricing and industrial decarbonization as priority cooperation areas, aiming to bolster competitiveness through cooperation on carbon pricing systems and carbon border measures.
Carbon border taxes.
Right. Taxes on imports based on their carbon footprint.
Yeah.
Designed to encourage cleaner production globally. They'll work with international partners to promote full, swift, effective implementation of the goals and targets of the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. That ambitious global agreement to halt biodiversity loss. Commit to collaborating to achieve an internationally legally binding instrument on plastic pollution, covering the full life cycle of plastics. At INC 5.2, that's the upcoming 5th session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, pushing for a strong global plastics treaty. Further commitments. Collaborate on implementing the Just Energy Transition Partnerships.
Helping developing countries transition fairly.
Exactly. Jointly call for ambitious action to implement the Paris Agreement. Keep the 1.5 degrees C warming goal within reach. Emphasizing urgency. Continue working with other international partners on instruments combating climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution. Welcome Canada joining the Global Energy Transition Forum launched by the European Commission to deliver on goals of tripling renewables, doubling energy efficiency by 2030 alongside a fossil fuel transition. Work together as co-conveners of the Global Methane Pledge. Deliver on reducing global methane emissions by at least 30% from 2020 levels by 2030. Methane's a powerful greenhouse gas. And importantly, advance cooperation on the climate security nexus by exploring a new climate security dialogue. Acknowledging climate change is increasingly a security threat.
Crisis management is another crucial area, everything from natural disasters to humanitarian emergencies. What specific actions are planned to enhance their collective ability to respond to international crises?
They plan to advance public and private investments in sustainable, inclusive, resilient, quality infrastructure, including through their shared G7 commitment under the Partnership for Global Infrastructure Investment, PGII, and the EU's Global Gateway Strategy.
PGII and Global Gateway. Big infrastructure pushes.
Right. Large-scale initiatives aim partly at countering other global influences. Recognizing human development investments as a key enabling factor, too. Strengthen cooperation on international crisis response enhance emergency management. With the signing of an administrative arrangement between Canada's Foreign Affairs Department and the EU's External Action Service on cooperation in emergency planning and crisis response. Streamlines working together when disaster strikes. Also aim to respond more effectively to humanitarian crises. Explore a humanitarian administrative arrangement to align priorities, coordinate aid delivery, build health security, resilience. Through enhanced partnerships, including an administrative arrangement on medical countermeasures, crucial for future pandemics, health emergencies.
Critical countermeasures.
Very timely.
Yeah, indeed.
Finally, building on the sale of 22 Canadian-built DHC-515 water bombers to the EU and member states.
Those water bombers for wildfire.
Exactly. They'll explore further opportunities to share mutually beneficial technology and expertise in combating disasters. A concrete example of collaboration already saving lives and property.
Finally, what are the commitments within the Justice and Home Affairs section of the Annex, covering legal cooperation, internal security matters?
In Justice and Home Affairs, they'll explore cooperation between Eurojust, that's the EU agency for judicial cooperation in criminal matters, helping national authorities work together on cross-border crimes.
That's Eurojust.
And the European Public Prosecutor's Office, EPPO. That office specifically investigates and prosecutes crimes affecting the EU's financial interests, like large-scale fraud, corruption. Bringing Canadian authorities into closer collaboration with these bodies, that's a significant step. Tackling complex international financial and organized crime by formalizing direct channels between their legal systems. Additionally, commit to advancing the implementation, ratification, and entry into force of the EU-Canada Passenger Name Record, PNR agreement.
The PNR agreement, sharing passenger data.
Yes, involves sharing airline passenger data for counterterrorism and serious crime prevention purposes, enhancing their joint security efforts.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? This entire document. It outlines a future where Canada and the EU are incredibly intertwined, from economic policies to shared security, the fight against climate change, even the way digital identities might be handled. This is far-reaching. It speaks to a profound level of intentional integration. Outro. What we've just unpacked here is, well, an incredibly ambitious and comprehensive roadmap for the future of the EU-Canada relationship, from tackling global conflicts, protecting human rights, to shaping the digital economy and leading on climate action. This joint statement from June 23, 2025, details a proactive, deeply integrated partnership. It goes far beyond traditional diplomacy.
Absolutely. This outlines not just, declarations of intent, but truly tangible commitments, with specific players, clear mechanisms, and in many cases, concrete timelines. It reflects a deep alignment of values, yes, but also a shared understanding that the complex, interconnected global challenges we face today demand deeply coordinated international responses across virtually all sectors. The sheer level of detail in that annexed agenda, it indicates a significant long-term plan for integration for coordinated action across a very broad spectrum of policy areas. It fundamentally reshapes how these two major global players operate internationally.
So as you go about your day, maybe consider how these agreements, which might seem abstract, could ripple through your daily life. From the goods you buy, the digital services you use, to the stability of the global challenges you hear about in the news. This deep dive shows us how international diplomacy and cooperation aren't static. They're constantly evolving to create a robust framework for the future. And it makes you wonder, what other global partnerships might eventually follow this ambitious model, this comprehensive, multifaceted integration? It's something truly significant to mull over until our next deep dive.